Greetings, Questers. I'm here to give you the latest update of 4.8.0. Technically, it's 0.4 as I've added a couple of small minor releases on top of it, but this is a great update in terms of just raw functionality. I've added a number of new game types, which includes a good number of features that have been kind of built in on the underneath the covers, which has to do with character sheets and adding more components to the game editor so that a number of other game types can also be supported. And the primary focus of this update was really about Genesys, the tabletop RPG, and subsequently ended up being some about Call of Cthulhu and some minor support for Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland, and other games that we plan on adding as many as we can. And the work that went into this release added a great number of features that can really help us get there. So you'll see that the patch notes are rather large, and I don't really want to go over every single one of them because it will take quite a while. But feel free to look these over when you get into Questline. You can just take a look at them by coming up to your updates up here, and then just opening that up, and you can just read through them as you want to. The primary things that we really did, though, were in relation to, again, adding the Genesys game type. And the big part about Genesys is that it has a number of really interesting mechanics that they use to kind of bring more story to your combats and to just the general game. And we tried to incorporate a number of useful tools that will let you do that with, again, the same principle of waiting does not equal playing. So we tried to reduce the amount of work that a game master has to go through to either set up a battle map or to even set up any sort of useful character sheets or details so that they can quickly just manage and get through their games. The biggest part of the update really has to do with adding support for pictographic dice. So dice that have iconography as opposed to just a standard number. And so we went through and added all of the dice that are available for Genesys, which includes their boost die, ability, proficiency, setback, difficulty, and challenge. And this also includes an update to the dice roller, which gives us the ability to use a pool of dice as opposed to just a static, simple quantity. And this pool of dice lets you mix and match them, across the board. And so now, given the way Genesys works, is that you have these pool of dice that I'm going to pick from. Maybe I have 2 ability dice, a proficiency dice, and a boost die. Maybe I have a setback and a couple of difficulty dice. And so that way, this whole thing gets rolled, and you can see that they all come out, and you get a really nice visual. All your dice are really easy to read, and the result comes out just like they do in our other games. And you can go through and you can actually check, the number of successes and failures and how advantages. And the final result actually auto-calculates all the results so that you can actually just see them straight up. So we tried to, again, simplify a lot of the things that you need to be able to play. Really just kind of getting down to the roots of how do I want my character to be. And so we added a bunch of new components that sit in the character sheets. One of them is this new ability tracker. So we can actually use this ability tracker. There's simple edit. You can just change the value as you need to. And the ability to tie these values into other things. We started adding new functionality to where I can take these skills and I can actually link a value, in this case, intellect, but I can link other attributes that are on the page to this value, and it will add a certain amount of change. In this case, it replaces dice in regards to what your skills are. So there's special rules that manage that. and it has to do with the character sheet editor itself. But you can see there's a new panel system for the attributes. I've actually used it quite a few times on this page to include this characteristics and defense, and even the experience, which is at the bottom of the page. And it lets you very easily and quickly modify and edit these values using a simple value option here for the soak, a standard just basic initiative where you could just set the value, and I can say I'm going to be in initiative 1, and I'll just hit join, and as long as I have an encounter running, it will join me at that initiative point. Then we went on to add a bunch of extra functionality to the hit points tracker so that it can actually do more than just hit points. The hit points tracker can now do pretty much any pool that you want. You can customize the name of it. So in this case, it says threshold, but it works and behaves the same pretty much across the board. So, I have this strain. I can I can add strain at any point, maybe add 2 strain for having an action, and I can take it away. I can change my threshold at any point. And the same thing with wounds. It's just as easy to, add wounds as you take them throughout the game. One of the small things that was kind of a harder thing to do, and you really only ever saw it inside of a D20 game, was that you had no real way to mark your token as dead. And so we've added a new marker here so that you can just simply click this, and as it saves, your token will appropriately update and show an update here so that you can actually see the current state of your token. And simply just removing it clears it away, and it's just as easy to do that. You can still use in the D20 system, you can still use the condition modifier to actually mark them as dead as well. But this is just kind of a slightly easier way to manage it. Specifically, it's easier to manage when you're dealing with multiple minion tokens or things like that. I can just simply mark them as dead. And there you go. Now, on top of that, we added a new critical injury system, which allows us to be able to track certain injuries specifically for Genesys, but for other games that have similar like critical wounds kind of tables and stuff like that. And in this case, we've baked in the critical injury table from Genesys, and I can simply just hit this roll button, and it will roll automatically for me based on the number of injuries that I have, and it will, add them. It'll pop up a modifier, and so you'll see that it rolls a 1d100, and when I hit roll, it'll post the roll out here. It'll roll my dice, and it'll automatically populate my critical injury, and then I can just hit add, and you'll see that it's marked in red here. There's a simple tooltip for us to be able to see it. And from here, we can edit it. We can change it all we want. We can remove it as we need to. And if I were to add another one and I go to roll, you'll see that it's automatically adding a plus 10 bonus to that. And I can also change the dice and whatever I want if I feel that's a necessary thing. Because there may be an instance I might want to add a D10 or something along those lines. I'll roll it again. And now it gives me another value. I just hit add, and now I have 2. And so it's an easy way for you to track those kind of injuries. And this also helps support other games that might have some sort of a wound system that lets you manage and be able to view the wounds that you've taken and be able to track that easily. On top of that, we have added some functionality to the action system. There's now a new detail. So if you come to editing an action, you can see the detail group, and you go to add a detail. There's this new Genesys detail that's at the bottom of the list, and it has your range, your critical, and your special for a given attack. And you can set up your values here so that as it displays, you can see them and you can view them very easily. So that way, when I click roll, this can get displayed to all the other people on the table. And so in this case, you'll actually notice that because I didn't have any difficulty or anything like that, that's obviously, this is going to be a pretty successful roll. And you'll see it has all the details. You'll see it has all the numbers and the values. And because I had 2 successes, it also adds a +2 bonus to my damage because of this specific icon here. This is called the success target. and the success target will take whatever the result of the effect above it is, and if there's any successes in it, it will add that value to the base value here. So that's kind of auto-calculated. It simplifies some of your work for you. The skill system. So with Genesys, there's a lot of skills, and everything's based on a rank system. And because the ranks directly affect how it correlates with a given characteristic, you actually want it so that if I had something like my ranged attack here, I have 3 ranks of ranged, but I actually have 4 agility. So what I really should end up with is 1 ability die and 3 proficiency die. And so this automatically calculates this for you, and it makes it easy for you to just be able to set the ranks of whatever you want. For example, if I wanted to change this to another rank in ranged, this should automatically just be 4 proficiency dice. And if I even took it down to 1, you would see that it would actually go to 3 ability dice and 1 proficiency. So all that stuff is auto-calculated for you and saves you a lot of time. If you need to add other skills, we've added all the basic skills from the rule book in here. And you can see, and I've just added some of the basic information so that you can easily get to it. But all these skills are pre-populated, and you can simply add something that you need, such as maybe I want to add my cool. And so I can just simply add it. It'll auto-populate the information for me, and it'll give me all these options here. I can also change the ranks here, and I can say, you can see how it's updating automatically based on its linked value is based on presence, and it's very easy for me just to update this. So that makes it really easy for me to be able to, again, build my characters and do that kind of stuff. Then you have your talents and ability sections, which is just a simple editor for giving it a name, giving it a description. You can say whether or not you have any uses. So like this one has a once per turn, lets me just set up the max uses, and I can say I have 1 out of 1 right now, or maybe I've used it once, or maybe I want to use it as a countdown. And then there's another one for motivations, and then the item system itself, which is just an inventory. So which adds another level. Inside the inventory system, we have added a new Genesys type here. So now you can pick a Genesys type, and it will give you all of the details that you need. Things like encumbrance and price and rarity, and if it's a weapon, skill, damage, critical, range, and special. If it's armor, what does it do? Does it add soak? That kind of stuff. So it's a very simple way to just fill out the information, very quickly have it in there. And we also have a new tooltip specifically for the Genesys stuff. And it will give you quite a bit of detail that you need to be able to look at your characters. So if you're ever looking down at your character, you can actually read the information, and it's right there for you. And it's pretty easy to look it over. So the next thing is that we've added a number of character sheets specifically for Genesys. If I were to go to add a new character sheet, maybe let's just do a skeleton. I won't go through the full details, but you'll see that I have an adversary, which is for rivals and in regular adversaries. You have a specific minion sheet, which I'll get into in a minute, which has to do with grouping. And then there's a NPC vehicle, a PC vehicle, a player, and an inventory only. Inventory only is great for if you want to make a common loot bag for the whole party. You can make a character, and everybody can dump all the party loot into it. So in this case, I would potentially make a minion, and I would pick a picture and that kind of thing, and then I could come over here and set up any information I need in regards to my character. So that being said, I'll show you how I set up the giant rat. So the giant rat exists. One of our favorite monsters to attack. Our wonderful little ranger is set up. I pre-built all this stuff, and there's a new group name option here specifically for the minions. And when you use a group name, anything that is on the battle map will count the number of items in that specific group. This is completely custom. You can name it whatever you want. So that way you can make your own custom groups. And it will count that value. And whatever that value is, it will give you some more information about wounds in the threshold, and it will automatically calculate your skills, and it will multiply them as appropriate. So you can see that there's no skills here, even though I've given them the skill text or the skill row. There's no ranks in here. But if I bring over to the map, you will see that I have technically 3 rats on the board, but one of them is dead. And so if I were to move this over, you can actually see that these values are auto-calculated just as you would expect them to be. And it gives us the ability to easily manipulate a group of characters so that each token is manipulated individually. But the most important parts about Genesys with minions is to be able to have their skills are group-based. And you'll see that the threshold here is technically a 5, but it's a threshold of 10 amongst the 3 rats. One of them is dead again. So if I were simply to come over to this rat and change this and get rid of this, you'll see that this hasn't updated because I haven't reloaded the character sheet. But when I do, you can very easily see that all these values have updated. And so it's pretty easy for you to manipulate and change the number of minions that are associated. And you'll see that if I change the name, I were to say, rats group 2 and update this, now these are considered 2 different groups. And so rats group 2 is only going to have 1 in that group, and rats is the other group, has 2. So that's how you can manage minions inside of Questline, but you can still use each individual token, which I think is crucially important for you to be able to manipulate and move tokens individually, so that you have absolute control over that individual token. The final thing that we did in terms of the character sheets here was sometimes you might resize your character sheet to be bigger than your window, and then you get stuck. And you can't actually do anything, and you can't resize it. Well, I've added a new menu option to reset size and position, which will simply just do that. And so that's a very easy way to get yourself out of trouble if you ever have a problem with your character sheets on the battle map. The next thing that we did is a kind of a nice usable tool for game masters is that we have now added a new tokens section on the map settings. So when you're inside of a map, you can go to your map settings, and now you can view all of your tokens right here. And whatever you have selected, you can also select them directly from this menu. You can also hide them. So you can very easily do that. And then you can also just delete them from here, which is a useful way to get rid of some of your tokens, which I've now also included a delete all. So I can quite literally take all of the tokens on the map, say delete all, and they're all gone. And so now I have a clean map, and I can use this to run another encounter if I so want. And again, it's just that easy to drag your tokens onto the map and get what you're looking for and get yourself back to ground zero. Finally, we added some new useful quality of life things. Inside of in most of these list menus now is the ability to collapse and expand all, as well as collapsing and expanding something in these lists will remember the state it was in when you last left this in the browser. And it's specific to the browser that you're currently using and to the computer that you're currently on. We didn't want to save all this information to the database, but it's very easily set to your local machine. And so I can very easily click collapse. I can expand specific ones. If I close this and come back into the menu, see it reopens where this is, and where this is really useful is inside the journal. I can collapse specific journals, and when I return to it, it will return back to the same state that I left. The 4 menus that this really affects is the characters menu, the maps menu, the journal menu, and the items menu. And so if I were to collapse everything here, you can see that this makes it a lot easier for me to manage and look through this kind of stuff. And so those were the major updates in terms of the user experience or the game master experience. The final piece was, and I won't go into too much detail, but when you are dealing with the new edit game type, the game editor itself has had a huge overhaul, and this whole interface has been completely updated to make it much easier to use, to make it much easier to get what you're looking for, to help you build stuff a little better. And it's a much cleaner view of the tools and options that you have. So the sheets here on the left, very quickly, you can just tab right through them, and you can pick which ones you want. You can now also pick all the components individually directly from here. And I can pick the items on my list. And so as I do so, it will pick the component. It will show me the details for that. And then it gives me a really easy way to manipulate this. So with that, you can pick a specific component, and you can see, like, here's all the details about the characteristics for the Genesys game, with a lot of basic information, gives you a lot of really good functionality and really good base functionality to start from. You can tab between the sheet editor and the tooltip editor itself, and the tooltip editor lets me pick a specific tooltip, and the tooltip will let me see the individual tooltips that you see at the bottom left of the map. And these are useful because then you can actually see that they're based off of another field, and it will give you these stuff. And we plan on actually adding a bunch of extra tooltips to give you a really robust tooltip system down there as well. And you can simply add them by updating them as you need to. And you can't actually see some functionality here because I am not, this account that I'm using for the demo is not the actual account that created these. So I have some limited functionality. I can't actually save this. So again, here's your game type properties. This is the generic game type, which we also added a new default item type so that you can actually pick this for your game types if you have something special that you want to do, like a D20 system or something like that. Finally, we add a new component viewer, and this component viewer just kind of gives you a preview of each of the components so that you can kind of get an idea what it's going to look like. And it gives you a really good idea if you're trying to look through these to see what you want to use, what's available. So that's, in a nutshell, what we've done for the game editor, and there's a lot of functionality under here. This is honestly the one of the best parts about Questline is the ability to manipulate and change your character sheets very easily. I'll go ahead and close this, and it brings you right back whenever you're done like that. So I switched quickly over to a new game because I just wanted to demo and show the Call of Cthulhu support that we've added as well. We have gone to create a new game type called Call of Cthulhu that you can find. It's just as in the public space. And it works as you would expect. You know, the characteristics are here. It has the values that you can set and work on. And each one of these pieces make it easier, just like we did with Genesys, to kind of build your character very quickly inside of Questline. So you can see if I were to create a very simple character, I guess we'll just call them simple. We'll pick the character sheet as an NPC, and we go over to the player. What you'll see is the characteristics actually have the ability to auto-calculate the half value and the fifth value as well for Call of Cthulhu or D100 style games, which makes it easier for you to be able to manipulate that. And then we also have some of the skills. We'll be adding and fleshing out all the skills based on the rule book as time goes on. So we should have those filled out, but you can simply pick one of these items, and you'll see that in my value, if I were to set my value to, 50%, what will happen is this also includes a half value and 50% fifth value. And you can click on these and it will roll them, and it has all the values easily just set up. And the final thing that we did for Call of Cthulhu was the ability to roll a D3 die, as that's a pretty common die for everybody to roll. And you'll see that it just rolls. It looks like a D6, but it actually is, but it's actually built to show essentially 1d6 divided by 2. So, and you'll see that it comes out, and my value is this. And you can see it just like before with other dice. But I know this has been a long update. There was a lot that we did, and we had planned on including a bunch of game types. We're trying to focus on adding a number of game types to give more opportunity for other games to be played through Questline. So there's been a lot of work there. But that's it for now. Thanks for stopping by, and keep questing.